but it's finding that spark of imagination and playfulness and curiosity that gets dampered down through excessive training or just not having the freedom to play in your dancing anymore.
Welcome to the Dance Reel podcast. I'm Kate Histon. To be part of our community, subscribe or follow this channel. This episode was sponsored by Master Dancer Mindset. Know yourself, be yourself, and express yourself on and off the stage. Today on the Dance Reel podcast, I am joined by Jen Murray, contemporary dance educator, choreographer, and someone I've known since the early days of when I had my dance school, Dance Dynamics. Originally from Canada, Jen trained in ballet before moving into contemporary dance and performing with leading companies in Vancouver. Now based in Australia, Jen is a dedicated teacher and a dance mum. In this episode, we explore the expressive power of improvisation, the importance of communication and responsiveness in the studio, and how she's navigating competitions from both sides of the floor. Welcome, Jen.
It is such a pleasure to be here and to see you so many years after the fact. I haven't seen you since when? The Dance Dynamic days.
Yeah, I think the last time I saw you there was a little visit when you visited Byron Bay around about 2018, 17, 18.
Oh, okay, yep.
But I met you back in 2006 when you moved from Canada to Byron Bay, and all of a sudden the contemporary dance scene blew up in Byron Bay because of you. And I remember hearing about you, this amazing woman that's running these adult contemporary classes, and she's really innovative and cool, and I wanted to meet you. And I had the idea to have this little, do you remember the Dance Dynamics company?
No,
Oh,
not really.
you have to say yes, because you choreographed, remember that contemporary routine that went for 10 minutes, the Aurora Lights?
Oh, yeah, the company. I'm sorry. The student performing team. Yes.
This was the kids. And we called it that to differentiate between like a competition thing, but they ended up doing a competition. But the
Yes, with a
piece you
section of it.
choreographed was for the mid-year show.
Yes,
Anyway, it was one
yes.
of the most beautiful, beautiful pieces.
Oh,
And
thank you.
when I met you, I was would have been in my early mid 20s, I think. Yeah,
You
mid
know what, though?
20s.
I think it was actually 2004 because we came
Ah,
over for a year.
yeah.
And that's when I did a lot of, I'm not sure when I did that performance piece, Kate, but I came over for like a year and Mike and I were just testing the waters. And that's when I
Yeah.
worked at the conservatorium in Lismore.
Yes.
And then I found my way to your studio and did some work then. And then when we came back in '06, we continued. Yeah.
That piece was performed in '07.
Was it? Okay.
Mm.
There you go. Yeah.
And we ended up, so it was a 10-minute routine. I say we, I did none of that. You did all of that. I just had this idea, can you do this? And I think it will work. And it really did. And it was the most mesmerizing piece of art. I just loved it. And
Oh,
then we
thank you.
decided after the mid-year show to chop it in half to put it in a competition. And it
Yeah.
won. And the
Yeah.
adjudicator said, "This is the best piece of art I have seen all competition." And it was your
Did you?
work.
Oh my
Yeah, you forget
gosh.
this.
Wow. I
See, I remember.
do. I'm so old. Things just fall out
No,
of my
you're not.
brain. That's
Well,
amazing.
I remember because it was a bit intimidating for me being younger, employing, right?
Mm.
Beautiful, older than me, teachers that knew more than me. So it was about, being humble enough to actually realize, you know what? The school's going to be limited unless I seek out people that know more than me, that are better than me in their fields and specialize in their fields. And you were just remarkable. And you really helped shape the way Dance Dynamics led from then on, but also were such an artistic and professional inspiration for me. So you
Oh,
always
thank you.
made that special impact on me personally and professionally. And I can't thank you enough. So, yeah, you don't remember, but I remember.
No, I was there. I do remember. I never thought, I always knew you were a little bit younger, but that never colored my outlook of you as like
Oh,
just a badass professional
you're
business
so
babe.
sweet. You're
Like you
so
just were
sweet.
such a hard worker. You had such a great ethos for the school and the way you shaped those young minds and hearts. Like I admired your work in that capacity. So
Oh,
it was mutual, 100%.
oh, you're so beautiful. Well, thank you. And yeah, you definitely helped lead the trajectory of dance dynamics after that. And how many years were you in Byron Bay?
So I'm going to say
Yeah,
18 months or something like that.
yeah,
We came back to Byron, and as these things do in holiday towns, things had changed. People had left. The kind of dynamism you're talking about around the adult scene had sort of simmered a little bit and shifted. It always comes back around again, but yeah, I wasn't
yeah.
finding the same kind of students that I'd had previously, and we just felt like there wasn't enough work for us there.
Mm,
So we cast our net a bit wider and then ended up in this big country town, Toowoomba, Queensland, with a larger population than the Bay,
yeah.
and haven't left. We said we'll go for 3 years, and we're still here. 15 years later, or whatever it is. So no longer, 17
Wow.
years. Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember you telling me when you're leaving, we were actually at the beach hotel having a cup of tea in the morning,
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
I was, "Ah, I'm going to miss you so much." But yeah, again, you made such a wonderful impression on me and the Byron Bay communities. And then after, when you left, what's your life looked like since those early days of dance dynamics?
Yeah. So, I really cut my teeth teaching at your studio and at the Arts Conservatorium in Lismore as well, which was at the time being run by Michael Hennessy,
Yeah.
who is a ex-Sydney Dance Company dancer. And I came in, I don't know, honestly, Kate, where I had that confidence from, because I had very limited teaching experience. I just was like, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to try.
You were always such a wonderful teacher, though, and communicator. That's been one of your superpowers, I think.
It's something I've always been drawn to.
Mm.
So, even when I was doing my professional performance training at the School of Toronto Dance Theatre, if they were like, oh, the first years need a teacher, I was the first one to put my hand up and just run to
Yeah.
the class and just, make it up in the
Yeah.
moment. Because I just really enjoyed, the energy you get back from a class. There's nothing
Yeah.
like it. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I didn't have a lot of experience before we worked together, but I definitely learned from watching you teach as well. You might not know
Oh,
that. Yeah, for sure. And then we came to Toowoomba, and I reached out to a local studio. It was kind of a flip of the coin. There were a few big ones, and I didn't
yeah.
know anybody here. I wasn't sure where to start. So I just phoned one of them up, and that was Dance Central. And they took me on in various capacities. They had a contemporary teacher at the time, but I did some other work there in the mornings, and then moved into the contemporary role like a year later. So while I was living in Byron, I would also commute to Brisbane, and I taught there at my in-laws studio, the Conroy Dance Centre and Conroy Performing Arts College. I've done a stint at the university out here. They needed a movement tutor for their acting program, and I found myself in that role. It was a massive privilege. It was such a stimulating period of time to work with actors. I absolutely love that. And I've produced a couple of shows, gotten some funding, which is no easy feat.
Oh.
And also, alongside all of that, I teach yoga and now meditation as well.
What initially drew you to contemporary dance? Because that's your favorite in dance, isn't it?
It is. I focused on ballet when I was younger and found it pretty dissatisfying,
Mm.
and it peaked with a company director, I'm not going to name names, who watched our class and then said, my feedback was, if you worked really hard and lost some weight, then
Oh,
you might be able to enjoy a career in the corps de ballet. And
oh,
I just thought, I was like, that's a really tepid kind of an offer. I was like, no, that's not for me.
yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I probably could have shoved myself like a square peg in a round hole. I
Mm.
could have, if that's what I really wanted, but I didn't. I wasn't driven to do that. And I
Yeah.
knew I would never be one of those really exceptional ballet dancers. Like I was good, but certainly
You're really
not.
good. I've seen the videos.
Yeah, no, I was good, but I wasn't like prodigiously talented by any respect. So during my training in high school, that was ballet focused. That's when contemporary came in, and it was called modern dance.
Yeah.
We had a powerhouse teacher, Barbara Lissick, who was amazing, and she changed my life. I went into her class. I didn't know what it would be like. There's all this rolling around on the floor. I couldn't work out how to do it. I'd always stand up facing the back on the wrong leg. It was this
Yeah.
whole new world that I knew nothing about, but was intrigued by.
Yeah.
And so after high school, I went to the School of Toronto Dance Theatre in Toronto. And I was just going to do their summer program as like a final swan song, just my last foray into dance, and then go to university and do something practical with my life. But I went and it was full time contemporary modern dance, and I just loved it. So
Wow.
I auditioned for the full time program and then went to that for 3 years. And then that was it. No looking back. But since then, and during that time, I've always kept up the ballet training because
Yeah.
it's the foundation. And even
Yeah.
now, I still go to Silver Swans.
Oh, do you?
I
I
do.
love that. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, that's so beautiful.
So contemporary just pulled me in because it was
Mm.
so much freer, I think, than the classical. And that's what I really was drawn to, was the freedom.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
Ballet being my forte, I I think I got stuck with dance dynamics teaching because I was that qualified RAD teacher teaching most of the ballet. But over the years, my secret love, I think definitely you're a big impact on that, was contemporary. I loved
Mm.
contemporary, and I'm teaching contemporary now here in Germany and a ballet class. I still
Love
do
it.
love ballet, but contemporary, I love it a bit more. And
Mm-mm.
my body really enjoys contemporary ballet. With my little injuries, it hurts these days. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And with a big part of contemporary improvisation, that's something that you are very good at, improvisation and choreography. And so over here in Germany, I've been exploring improvisation with my students, and they hadn't done any before I
Wow.
came, which was really interesting. It made me look at peeling back the layers of how to explain about, really going with how you feel without judging. And it made me think of you a lot because that was something you were always really good at. And so improvisation can be deeply freeing and also vulnerable. How do you guide dancers into that space of not knowing without fear of self judgment?
A big thing is I do it with them.
Yeah.
So I will get up and I'm not afraid of making ugly shapes and
Yeah.
looking ridiculous and doing silly things. And I'm finding that the younger you start improvising with students, the better outcome you'll have because they don't build up that kind of shield of fear and uncertainty that comes up in adolescence. I let myself be guided by ideas from the students, and I try to make it a really safe, open space where all ideas are welcome
Mm.
and there's no wrong way to do it. And if we start, even with a really young class, an improv that I've done is you're jumping into a puddle, and then a kid went, well, what if the puddle's a portal to a different world?
Wow.
And I went, awesome, let's do
Yeah.
it. So we
Yeah.
jump through and they go, okay, what world are we in? Well, it's the bubblegum world. Okay, cool. So how do we dance like we're sticking to bubblegum? And so we explore that and I do it with them. And you put on music that will kind of suit that, like weird poppy music or whatever. And then we jump into another puddle and it's a new world. What world are we in? Slime. Okay, cool. And
Yeah.
so it can be super playful. And with the older students as well, I mean, that's not something I would do with
Yeah.
16-year-olds, obviously, but it's finding that spark of imagination and playfulness and curiosity that gets dampered down through excessive training or just not having the freedom to play in your dancing anymore. And then sometimes, like with the not knowing, that space of not knowing what a state or a movement idea is, I'll just say, let's just stay in this space for a bit. So maybe it's a bit uncomfortable. Like with an older group, we went off a visual stimulus that had hooks pulling, someone's like eye. That sounds really gross, but
Wow. No.
we went off a visual stimulus. We're like, okay, well, let's get pulled around by hooks, right? And it's like, oh, some people are like, well, that feels very obvious to me. I can imagine that. And others, it's less accessible. And you go, okay, well, just stay in that state of not knowing what this is meant to be. It's going to look different for everybody. It's going to feel different for everybody. So I just encourage them to just stay in there. And inevitably, usually something comes. I'm like, don't judge what comes, any movement. And even if I can't see the hook pulling them through the space, they can feel it and it gets them moving. And there's no right or wrong way. So we do improv that's not just like moving freely, but is guided by a recipe, like guided by a set of instructions. Like, okay, so let's start on the floor and we're down low and then we come up higher and the floor becomes hot like lava, reacting to that kind of thing. So we try to really conjure up different movement states driven by imagination.
I can imagine as well, it's sort of like, theatre sports, the yes and exercise. Have you heard of that in acting? And it's like, I quite like that concept, bringing it to dance, but also without regard to our mindset in the dance industry, which at times can be quite competitive, the yes end. Have you found with improvisation and say giving things a go, it to be helpful for maybe you've come across some quite rigid classical ballerinas that, as you mentioned before, need to soften and develop again their self-trust and be self-led dancers? How can improvisation be used as a little self-development tool for that aspect?
It can be hard to break down that barrier that you've described as someone's highly trained and is unused to listening to their own internal impulses about how to move. But if you can start really simply, keep the stakes really low and make it non-performative. Yeah. So when you go to an Eisteddfod or an audition where improvisation is part of it, you will see dancers pulling out their most virtuosic, incredible movement that they have in their movement tool belt. And that's great to be able to do that and to know the capacity of your body and where it can go and what it can do and showing it at this like really high level. But it's also really great to strip that all away and go, okay, well, let's do something really small and quiet and internal and non-performative. So it might start just very, very simple. Start with your eyes closed. That really helps. One I like to do is just finding circles in the body. So close your eyes, you shift your weight around in a circular pathway. Then you can move the circles to different body parts. And then you're moving through circles through the space, spiraling, you open the eyes, you're moving around, that kind of thing. It's like you have to trick these highly trained dancers into trusting their body to just do the thing without overthinking it.
I think that that's really helpful. One of my little secret missions is almost to bring more freedom to the highly trained classical ballerinas that are used to being told what to do when their brain is so focused on getting things right and perfect, and do a bit of coaching work on mindset. And so I find even just, and I can't obviously through like a Zoom experience, but getting them to practice improvisation and almost to find within their communities really good improvisation teachers, because for me, improvisation is a tool that can actually help develop that part that may have been squashed down, not necessarily from any sort of ill-intentioned methods of teaching. I'm not going there, and I know I have gone there, but more so just from the actual structure of classical ballet. And I'm talking to the ones that are probably wanting a career, wanting to do that way, is like, how can they not get lost in the perfectionism and just come back to being a self-led performer and an artist, not about getting things looking so aesthetically pleasing, because they're losing their soul is what I'm finding.
Yeah. And the demand of companies now is you can't be a robotic dancer who can only respond to instruction and demonstration. So many choreographers demand the ability for you to improvise and to provide, to generate material for them to work with. And that might be less so in the classical world, but I do know that so many classical companies embark on these big contemporary dance pieces sometimes that require that kind of freedom that you're talking about, and to be as self-actualized and have the confidence to move your body in a way that might not be as prescribed as set choreography. So it's like, I think it's crucial now. It's a crucial skill, even for a classical ballet dancer.
So in your view, what's the relationship between improvisation and choreography? And does one inform the other in your creative process?
Yeah, 100%. So I see them as completely entwined. Historically, I've come to my choreography entirely through improvisation. So that's my starting point. I might have an idea or a concept or something I need to express because of whatever the character my class is in this year's concert or whatever. I'll put on some music and I improvise with that idea in mind. And then from there, I work very much filming myself and then kind of cherry picking the good parts and solidifying it and making it clear. But now, as I'm working in this aging body that's not as capable as it once was, I can't move with the same ease. I rely more, I would say, on the dancers and their improvisations. So using that as a starting point, drawing movement from them, it's always better than what I think I can do myself. So we will improvise and I'll give them a task or a little score and they will improvise to that. And then I'll say, okay, just create a short phrase that is repeatable. So if I asked to see it twice, it'd be pretty much the same, and give them time to work on that task. And then from there, that's a starting point. I'll draw movement out and I'll develop it, or it will give me an idea to take it somewhere else, or I'll stitch things together. It feels quite collaborative. Not always. I don't always work this way. It depends on my relationship to the students, ones that I know well and that there's a lot of mutual trust. We will work this way. If I'm bringing a ready-made piece to a school to set on a dance team, there's less of that. It's usually something that I've created, but always through improv.
Yeah.
So I just see them as inextricably linked. I couldn't really parse them out one from the other because they're just the same.
Have you found more joy from one form of doing, say, choreography as a collaborative process with your students through initially improvisation, as opposed to coming into a studio with a ready-made piece of choreography? Does one or the other bring you more joy, or is there any favorite you have?
No, I don't think so. I enjoy them both for different reasons. I like delivering a work and then seeing what this new group of bodies will do with it. Like they interpret things differently. It's also trickled down through the filter of their teacher or rehearsal director. And so inevitably it comes out looking, like their own, like a little bit different to my original intention, which is interesting to me. I like to see how things shift. But I do really love the collaborative process as well, because that gives so much ownership of the work to the students. They feel like there's a piece of them in the work, and therefore they relate to it better and they care about it that little bit more. You're not just coming in and telling them exactly what to do. You're asking their opinion and they feel validated and valued. So I think as a teacher, it's a lovely way to work with students.
Oh, and that would be so good for them, even just in their personal development.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When you're choreographing, are you led by a theme, emotion, movement, or something else entirely? If you could reflect, what is your impetus for creating?
I think it's a bit different every time, though. I'm a great lover of music and I spend a lot of time listening to music. And sometimes I will hear a piece that resonates really deeply. And I know this is something I need to work with. And that'll be my starting point. From there, improvising to that piece, then sometimes the theme or the idea will unfold. And the music is the first starting point. Other times I'll work with something visual to draw an idea out of. So like painting or something you would see in an art gallery, and use that as a starting point. And then the music, try different pieces and see what kind of layers on top. So I work in different ways. It just depends on what I'm doing. what the
Yeah,
requirement
beautiful.
is. Yeah.
So you did say before that when we met you when you to teaching, and as I said, you did not come across like that at all. You're always really calm and a beautiful leader, and also students just respected you without any power over. It was really nice to watch. And so, with that, you've mentioned as well the importance of not bringing your stuff to the studio. How do you practice responsiveness rather than reactivity in your teaching?
It's an ongoing process and an ongoing practice, and something that I will never perfect, because we're all human and we have our really difficult days where it is hard to walk in fresh. But one way for me is if I do have a heated moment in the studio, and they do happen because kids come in and there's quite a big restraint collapse that happens after holding it together all day at school, even for the big kids, and they just need somewhere to kick back and have a chat with their friends, and I don't feel they're always very focused.
Yeah.
If I'm carrying a lot that day, sometimes I'll be a bit snippy.
Yeah.
Because you do need your boundaries, of course. But
Yeah.
if I ever cross a line where I can feel it, how it lands in my body, if I say something that makes me feel it's like, oh, that was not the appropriate thing to say, I will always apologize. And maybe not right in that moment, but after everyone's we've gone through the class and things have shifted, the energy has shifted, then I will always seek out that student or talk to the group and just say, hey, I'm sorry that,
Yeah.
we weren't quite meeting each other today, and I'll do better next time.
Oh, you're so beautiful.
And I have done that because, it is difficult, but I really do try with my knowledge and my practice of yoga and meditation. Like, I have the tools. So I do try to come in and just be there and be present and take that pause. Yeah, I just feel like it's more effective. And if things are getting a bit derailed, I try to have like a quiet conversation now. Just say, hey guys, what's going on? You
Yeah.
know, can we focus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I know reflecting back when I've taught, especially when in Australia, when there's, say, competitions or pressure or exams, it's a two-way relationship in terms of those students that are wanting to dance, say, competitively, or where the stakes are a little bit higher. It's that thing of reminding them of their responsibility. And for me, sometimes I've had to go in and just lower my expectations, like have a little expectation shift and check in with myself. Well, what are my expectations right now? Are they too high? Because there's some sort of lack of integrity. And I don't mean integrity isn't a moral thing, but a lack of alignment in terms of intention, right? And so, yeah, that's been interesting in the later years when I was older with a few teachers that may have gotten frustrated. Yeah, I just remember I remember saying to one, just lower your expectations and you'll enjoy your job more, and they'll probably step up. So if you actually lower your expectations, they will feel that and then they
Yeah.
will step up. Whereas you're putting in too much energy and attention and you're wanting them to be
Yeah.
here where they're here, literally just lower your expectation
Mm.
to about here and give it a few weeks and they're going to come up. What that looked like was be a little bit more passive and less passionate as a teacher, just for that.
Right.
That was a little trick for this certain situation. And it seemed to work for this teacher. But then I took that on of, sometimes you say things and it just comes out of your mouth and it's like, oh, that's probably for me, but I've said it to that person.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
It's interesting. The
Mm.
expectation switch. And then obviously, yeah, communicate that. So I've spoken a lot about toxic culture in the dance industry and recently did a little solo episode on differentiating between a toxic culture and a teacher having a bad day. For teachers out there that may have had a bad day or may have had a few too many bad days and have gone home and felt bad and ashamed, what advice could you give them to actually move forward and to recalibrate from feeling maybe shame of having had a bad day in
Mm.
teaching? So maybe crossing that line, as you've mentioned before, where your line is, maybe some teachers may be reflecting and then might be feeling guilty or bad. What advice can you give from one leader to another to help them through that?
It's so tricky when you come home after work and you don't feel good about the day that you've had with your students. I think it's crucial to practice self-compassion towards yourself and also have compassion toward the kids who may be struggling and maybe not rising to your expectations, whether that's performance wise or even behaviorally, because I've just come to realize there's so much pressure on
Mm.
kids, so much more than there used to be, coming from all sides, and you just see them struggling to balance the school demands with this love of dance that many of them have. That's why they're there. Yeah, but they just don't always do what you think they're going to. And then you might react poorly. So what I've done in the past is I go home, I'll really sit with the feeling. I try to not distract myself from it. So that
Mm.
is not the time to doom scroll.
Yeah.
I'll just sit in it and I'll really think about it and I'll go, I think I really let my students down or this student, and allow myself to feel that. And then I'll go, you know what? I've had a hard day. Everybody makes mistakes. I forgive myself and find a way to move forward. And for me, it's like in parenting, it's repairing. So
Yeah.
I will seek out that student or class the next time I see them and just have a conversation, a really honest conversation. Say, hey, I wasn't at my best last week. But I feel that, you are also struggling. So let's have a talk about it. And I,
Yeah.
I find that they respond really well,
Mm.
and you just cannot beat yourself up. And it's just part of growth, because growth isn't linear, right?
Mm.
Sometimes you will just be great. Like I have these days where I'm just on fire, having the best classes and really enjoying it. And like students are enjoying it. And then the next week, it might be a completely different story. So you just have to be able to be fluid and responsive and, yeah, forgive yourself. And there's no
Yeah.
shame in having a
Yeah.
human reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Towards the end of owning my school, I had a student who was MIA for their RAD, and they're doing a high level, like a high level.
Yeah.
And I was writing to the mom, trying to communicate, where are you?
Mm,
And so I just didn't get a response, and I was thinking, this is so unlike them.
mm,
And then she came to the one class before the exam, which was 3 days before the exam, and the work had really gone, was reflective of someone that went MIA before
yeah.
a big exam. And I was
Mm,
really upset, and I felt more of my snap was held. So I gave a bit of my snap, if you know what I mean. And
yes.
I think one of my things I said was ballet 101, point your feet. Like I was really cranky. Like, you're doing a high level exam and you're not even stretching your feet. And I just was so
Mm,
cranky. I was pregnant with Arlo at the time.
mm,
And she left and apparently cried afterwards. And
right.
because I felt so justified in my anger, and it took me a while, like to actually front up and just say, I'm sorry. I should have maybe just not said anything and rang the mum later and said she can't do the exam.
Yeah.
And I was really disappointed in myself that I did that.
Mm,
And then I toggled between feeling justified, and that's someone like me and what I stand for. Anyway, I ended up apologizing. She said, oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. And I just said, no, it's not okay. I shouldn't have
yeah.
spoken to you like that. It's not
Yeah.
okay. Thanks
Mm.
for taking responsibility for your part, like which she was doing, but I should have done better and I don't want you to take that on. Anyway, it's not easy. It's really hard.
It's not easy. And I find it's like, can be a bit ego driven on our behalf as well. When you just take yourself out of the equation, going, okay, this has nothing to do with me as a teacher. It's their reality. It's whatever they're dealing with at this time.
Mm,
And it doesn't have to reflect on
yeah,
you, right?
yeah,
And so if you just remove yourself and just look at the child and say, okay, well, what is going on for you here?
yeah,
And is it the best decision to go forward and do that exam, for example? Because I just
Mm.
feel the pressures on them now are so extreme. Do you feel that?
Yeah. And look, this girl ended up not doing the exam because
Okay.
she wouldn't have passed. I felt that.
Yeah.
And I remember my feelings. I remember feeling responsible for her and wanting her to pass so she doesn't feel sad. Like I just had this because I felt motherly towards her. I actually felt like um, I felt that responsibility. And
Yeah.
then when it was like, no, she doesn't have to do the exam. It's okay. She can experience that disappointment, and that's not my responsibility. So it
Right.
was like, where's the line of my responsibility? Because I felt overly responsible.
Yeah.
And I wasn't having the thoughts of what it made me look like. It was like, in terms of if she fails, it's like, well, she fails, she fails. But
Yeah.
it felt like, I don't know. It was just really odd. I mean, mind you, I was highly hormonal, and a few days after that, ended up in hospital, almost losing my child. So it was just like the stress was.
Yeah.
I definitely felt the stress of the exam period and being an older geriatric pregnant mother. But that's not to excuse it because I was still, yeah, conscious. Anyway,
Well, this is the thing is life goes on for us and every day, you wake
mm,
up and you're going to show up differently because we all have our stressors. We have our
yeah,
hormones to deal with and like that's just juggling all of this is part of the dance. It's part of figuring out how to show up for your students
yeah,
authentically. And like some days I am cranky and I will usually let them know.
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
say, look, I'm having a hard time today. I'm feeling a
mm,
bit cranky. I would really appreciate it, if we can do X, Y, Z. And quite often you'll find that they'll want to support in
yeah.
that way. Not that
Oh,
that's
that's
their
great.
job to support the teacher, but I think there's value in honesty,
Yeah, and
right?
naming it.
And yeah,
Mm.
and naming it. That's right.
That's
Mm.
awesome.
Mm.
Oh, beautiful. And your daughter also dances,
She
and
does.
she is about to start a Stedfords.
Well, she just has started a Stedfords. We've done
Oh,
two. Yeah. She did a little bit last year. She had one solo and just dipped her toe in and went to a couple of events. But this year we're in a more kind of concentrated a Stedford program that's new at our
yeah,
studio. So she dances at the studio I work at, which presents its own challenges working with your own child. And I know you've
yeah,
done that as well.
yeah.
Um,
Not easy.
she's 11, and there was a lot of resistance initially to mom having any kind of input as to, how she did that run or what she could work on. But she's starting to seek out my opinion now, which I really
Mm,
value.
mm,
And I have to say to her, our relationship as student and teacher has to be a little bit different
mm.
to how we are.
Yeah,
You have to parse those things out a little bit. And now that she's kind of hitting that maturity level where that seems to be a little more possible, we're developing some kind of working relationship together. I don't create her dances, that's done by her teacher, but I have been rehearsing them for her because
yeah,
why not? I'm
mm,
a resource
yeah.
that she can utilize because I've
And
done all different styles and
how does she respond if you're helping her with her routines?
it's getting better. She's more receptive. But
Yeah,
initially, like
mm,
last year, for example, I was just like, I'm going to stay hands off here because
yeah,
she'll see it as criticism
mm,
rather than feedback as to how to
mm,
improve. And
mm,
she's great at taking feedback from other teachers other than myself. It's a little trickier with your own
yeah,
mom
mm,
to not see it as criticism, but we're figuring out a way that's,
yeah.
beneficial to her, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I when Sinead was she would have been 7. That was young. I taught her a little classical ballet solo for an
Oh,
Eisteddfod, and she did 2 Eisteddfods, and then I was like, I'm not teaching her anymore. So I said
yeah.
to her, and I loved teaching her. It was interesting, but I found that it was very stop start and it was very hard because I'm her mom, and she wouldn't, like, it was a 30-minute lesson, so she wouldn't finish the lesson. And I just said to her after her two steps, and she did really well. She got a little second and then a third,
Oh.
and it was super cute. Like I did get a buzz out of seeing her. I'm not going to lie, but I was scared actually. I was scared of I just really wanted to have this relationship with her where I'm her mum, and
Mm,
then and I didn't probably trust my own sense of navigating that trajectory as she got older. So I just said to her, if you want to do solos, you'll have to have another teacher. I won't
yeah.
teach your solos. I teach you in other classes.
Yep.
And she just said, no. I said, do you want this teacher? She said, no. Do you want that teacher? She said, no. And I said, well, that's just what it is. And she's like, but I really want you to teach me. And I said, I love you, but, I didn't want to say it's not working, but it just, I'd walk away feeling frustrated because she didn't want to try, whereas she'd try for another teacher. And so I
That's
thought, oh,
right.
well, what
Yeah.
happens if I keep going with this? I don't think I'm going to like the person I'll become. So,
Right. Yeah,
Um,
that's probably wise.
but later
Yeah.
on, she was like, Mum, why didn't you teach me solos? I'm like, well, you had the choice to go with someone else. And if you really did want to do it, you would have. That's what I figure.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. Yep.
yeah.
So she didn't continue in that world.
Not in the solos.
Yeah.
I think she had a break and then started again when she was 17, and she ended up moving in. So I taught her a little ballet solo. And I think
Mm.
as her mum and teacher, I was really keen to establish a really clean classical technique and felt that doing the one-on-one tuition would help establish that. She did her exams and then she was part of the performance group that would go and do the
Yeah.
Eisteddfods, but no solos from I think 7 all the way. And then to 17, she picked up a jazz solo and started working with another teacher and loved it. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Does she
So
teach now?
she teaches at Crow at National College of Dance, and she
Okay,
does
cool.
their admin in Newcastle. So she works in administration. She's having her gap year. So actually, this is her second year of gap year
Yeah.
after high school.
Extended gap year.
The extended gap year. Yeah. So, but she does do some adult dance classes around Newcastle. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so with your daughter and Stedfords, and
Mm.
obviously being a teacher, you would have been quite privy to seeing the Stedford scene and what happens
Mm.
backstage. How do you find that?
It's super interesting. So I did a Stedfords as a kid. Things are quite different now, but so far with the limited exposure I've had, I'm really impressed. Like I find that the sportsmanship between the competitors is really positive. They seem keen to support each other. Like the last of Stedford we were at last week, we just found a spot in a dressing room and the girl was like, "Oh, I'm in the 11-year-old category." And my daughter's like, "Yeah, me too." And so they were instant friends. And this girl was like, "It's my first solo ever." It's been like, "Oh, you'll do great." And then this other little girl won. She won her first try, just won.
Wow.
Like she was very talented. And my daughter was thrilled for her. She was able to celebrate that win with her, and she got a place as well, but not first, obviously. And so it was really lovely to behold. As a dance teacher, I see things happening on stage that concern me a little bit. There's a
Mm,
lot of acro, and in the context of the routine, like sometimes it flows and it seems like an appropriate choice for that moment if it's a dynamic jazz or something. But I saw a lyrical where a kid did a back head spring in a lyrical. And I just
yeah.
thought, how is this? It's spectacular, but how is this serving the dance?
Yeah.
And I just don't think it is, right? It's just showing facility.
Mm,
And, lots of hard smacking knees on the ground with the toe rolls and the jackknives. And like, I personally, I don't adjudicate. I know that you do, but I don't need to see an 11-year-old do a jackknife. It's
no.
just not something I feel it like serves the art, right? And so it's interesting and somewhat concerning. And I'm just kind of feeling my way through it, but I'm trying to just be a neutral observer and just see what it's all about. And so far, like my daughter has had enjoyable experiences. It's pushing her to rehearse more and take personal responsibility
Yeah.
for this process, which I think is really positive. She's making some new friends that I know she'll see around the place in different competitions. And it seems mainly positive.
That's beautiful. Well, luckily she has you as her mum to help her keep grounded and yeah, well informed.
I hope so. Like, I think she is starting to value my opinion a little bit more as she
That's great.
matures. And we do work together. She's in my contemporary classes, so we do
That's
that.
great.
We love to improvise together. It's
So nice.
something we've always done, which is
Yeah.
funny. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Mm, mm.
And you've been teaching for a while now. What are the
Yeah.
biggest shifts you've seen in how we approach mental and emotional safety for our students? Yeah.
Just the general awareness around all of these things has really progressed. It's something that it's so necessary to be aware of all the struggles that kids are going through these days with whatever it may be, pressure from school, living in two separated households, whatever. I mean, there's myriad of situations. And just the awareness around it has really grown, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's more professional development and courses that teachers can do that help support this learning around it. As a teacher myself, I just really try to meet the students with where they're at and to treat them with respect and to not talk down to them and to have a dialogue that if they have boundaries around something, like they partner work, for example, one day, maybe somebody doesn't want to be touched for whatever reason. Fine. That's fine. That's great. Like, let's do this other activity instead and just respecting boundaries
Yeah.
without pushing, because that certainly wasn't the way when I was training as a young person. And I'm sure it wasn't for you.
No, no. Sorry. Laugh now. I laugh now. Um, and speaking of that, you introduced me to Cindy Ambridge, which you've already done an episode. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no
On
worries.
boundary
I did.
setting.
Yeah. I did a workshop with her and she just kind of blew open my whole perspective on all of these issues that I'm sure you discuss in the episode with
Oh,
her around consent and like it's so much a part of the culture. It's this assumed consent to touch students because we're working with our bodies in a physical way.
yeah.
But I don't think it can continue this way
Mm,
into the future. Like I think it is inevitable that
mm.
we're heading in the direction where we should not assume consent.
Yeah.
And it's a huge cultural shift and it's going to take a lot of conversations. And there's like the old guard of old school teachers who probably won't be open to change. And so they'll just age out. But I'm hoping that new teachers coming in will be introduced to these topics much sooner, much earlier, and that it's a
Yeah.
part of their training. And then it's just implied from the beginning
Yeah.
that something as simple, I know that she suggests like a class check-in. Hey, is there anyone who is uncomfortable with getting a physical correction today or vice versa? Are you comfortable getting
Yeah.
a physical correction? And then asking, hey, can I just support your foot? Like it's a small shift, yet it feels huge because it's just
Yeah.
not how things usually work in a studio, right?
I think, yeah, and I think Cindy's work is such a good pushback to the Americanized style of jazz and
Mm-hmm.
teaching methods where the teachers will literally be hands on, try and get an oversplit with a student.
Oh my
And,
gosh.
I even had at my dance school a younger teacher who loved that certain TV show
Yes, that will not be named.
that will not be named and wanted to
Yeah.
be like the 2.0 uh, main teacher character on that
Cult
TV
leader.
show
Yes.
and I'm like, no. And she
No.
just couldn't see. I mean, she couldn't be told. It was like, this is, because this is the TV show she grew up watching and I was
Yeah.
obsessed with it. And I think I saw 5 minutes and felt like I was going to vomit in my mouth and had to turn it off. And so I refused to watch that show. But yeah, there was this big cult following of that show, which I think there still is, and that style.
Mm.
So I feel
It's pushing
like
against the
people were
grain.
obsessed with that as well, the
Yeah.
drama of it, like the drama. And it's like, oh, anyway,
So toxic. It was so toxic. And
it,
also just completely staged, right? Like you can't
oh,
tell me that all of those things were how their
yeah,
life actually was. It's just
yeah,
impossible. But
no,
yeah, the burgeoning social media scene of all of these. Like I'm a lurker. I don't have like a social media presence. It's just not important to me. But I do kind of lurk around the edges sometimes. I'm trying to get away from it because I think it's really toxic. But
yeah,
um, just those little videos of the oversplits and how to stretch and people wrenching each other around. And it's just all so unsafe.
yeah,
It's so unsafe and it's sending completely the wrong message
yeah. You
to
know,
our youngsters.
I was even thinking as you said that the most interesting people I find in this industry are the ones that don't have the big social media presence. I mean, not all of
Mm.
them, but like I've interviewed a few that do, and they're pretty incredible. But yeah, the interesting people like yourself, there's no need to have a social media presence. Yeah,
Just in my own little corner of the world, just, doing the work. And there's must be a bunch of us out there.
yeah, just a bunch.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's huge. Like dancing is huge. Is it
Yeah.
big in Germany?
Where I live, there's the Detmold Ballet Company, and they're a
Mhm.
smaller company, beautiful people. And there's the school I work at is pretty much the ballet school in Detmold, and I think there's a few little recreational schools. Yeah, yeah, dance is really big here. What I find though, I haven't come across a traditional type dance as Stedford where there's the feedback system. Over here, they have competitions and you just get a score. And so
Oh,
as a
wow.
judge, I'll be on a panel and
Yeah,
I score them based on their system. So you do a training and they will teach you how their scoring system works.
yeah.
And that's been really interesting.
I cannot imagine you must see hundreds of solos a day sometimes. And it's like, how do you take
Yeah.
that all in? How are you present for every single adjudication? Like that's just so intense.
Look, it's rewarding. I do love it.
I do love that idea of a panel though, because then it's much more egalitarian. Like it's not just one person's opinion, which is
Yeah.
entirely subjective, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Our beautiful long chat's coming to an end, my friend, but I wanted to ask you a final question.
Sure.
What gives you hope about the next generation of dancers coming through, and what do you feel they most need from us educators? You've probably already
I don't
answered it
know.
throughout.
Yeah, I'm not like, I just find it so incredible. Like I've taught for quite a long time now, and the kids just keep coming. And then I see them grow. I might have a child for, I don't know, 7, 8 years sometimes, where I see them from quite little and right up through to the end of high school. And a lot of our students have gone on to dance and many have not, but they all seem to take something from their dance training that is invaluable to how they live their lives. And for me as a parent, choosing to have my child in dance, and I've always let her take the lead and say what classes she wants to do and how many. Like I've never been pushy. And now she's at the point she wants to do as much as she can fit in kind of thing. It just seems to give the kids focus and drive and discipline and all the good things that we know dance does for you, and also that the mental health aspect of how good is it to move your body every day and to release
Yeah.
all those feel good hormones and endorphins, and like it's just crucial. And in this life that's becoming more and more sedentary, it's becoming more important that we all just don't morph into cyborg machines without a body that needs to be taken care of. So what gives me hope, I guess, is that they keep showing up and they're hungry. And I just love my job. I love what I do. What was the second part of the question?
What do you feel they most need from educators?
Just support,
Mm.
just like not the days of belittling and shaming and like talking down to get the results. Like those are just so far behind us now. I think it's a collaborative effort to support your students and to help them shine and excel to the best of their abilities. And then you have all this influence and input on this dancer, and then you set them free and you watch them fly and they go off to other parts of their lives. And sometimes I don't know what they're
Yeah,
doing, or, you just kind of lose track, but you just sort of hope that you had some kind of little positive influence on their
yeah.
lives. Yeah.
Do you miss them when they go?
I'm not an overly sentimental person. So, we've had so many great cohorts,
Yeah,
go through, and
yeah,
some of them become kind of legendary in retrospect. Where it's like, oh, that year was just so
yeah,
incredible. And then you look at the successes that they've had in their lives, and,
yeah.
many of them no longer dance or have anything to do with dancing, but they're totally successful people.
Mm,
And you're
yeah,
just like, that's awesome. That's awesome. I can't help but feel like, we had something to do with that,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Not
yeah,
everything,
yeah.
certainly, but
No, yeah,
yeah, it's really gratifying.
yeah. The little
Yeah.
group here in Germany, because they finish up their end of school year is July, and
Mm.
like half of my contemporary class will be gone because they'll move away. And so I think I've got 5 weeks with them, or 5 weeks until their concert, and then another 2 weeks. And I'm already like last night I said to them, I'm going to miss you. I speak in English with them. I'm terrible. Like I should be speaking more German, but I'm thinking, hey, you're getting an English lesson, and they understand me. So, and I've said, I'm going to miss you all. But I will. I'll just that connection and it feeling like bye. But I should be used to it by now. Every year having, the seniors leave, the next level leaves, and yeah, you do. There is that little bit of a oh, and then the new
There
ones come
is.
through. So
Yeah, the
yeah,
new ones come up. There's always the new ones coming up. And yeah, there's always like a bit of grief at the end of every year when our year
yeah,
12s are moving on. They're all crying after the
oh,
concert. They've got mascara down their faces and they're sobbing. And,
it's
like there's that real grieving process, but then they go
yeah, it's a big
and we
part of their life.
continue. And what I love is when they come back.
Yeah,
And if they've gone on to train further in dancing, they'll come back and they'll offer a workshop and they'll support the younger students. And, I just love that. I love that. And they all feel genuinely drawn to come back and kind of contribute back to the community. I just think it's beautiful.
it's so nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Aw. Well, my beautiful friend, thank you so much for sharing
Oh, you're
your
welcome.
gorgeous wisdom with us.
Thanks, Kate. It was so good to chat.